She spat in my glass at my own son's wedding, then lifted her chin and spat on me. The room went silent except for the projector humming behind my shoulders, freezing a frame where she was kissing her lover the night before. If you're watching this, don't blink. The way this ends is the reason I still own my hotel and the reason the wedding ended 5 minutes after it began. A year earlier, I was 63, grandmother of 2, and stupidly hopeful. My name is Vera. I own the Lantern, a 68-room boutique hotel on the promenade, 3 restaurants leasing ground floor space, and a rooftop bar that makes more money on sunsets than it does on martinis. The Lantern was my late husband's dream and my discipline. The floors I've mopped, the boilers I've replaced, the staff I've raised into managers who call me Mom Vera more often than they call their own mothers. I am not sentimental about business. I am sentimental about people who have earned me. My son, Adam, is 33 and has not yet earned me. He is talented, kind at heart, allergic to boredom, and dangerously eager to prove he is not the owner's son but the owner. For 3 years, I kept him rotating front desk, housekeeping, banquets, then nights in the laundry sorting towels until his pride softened and his instincts sharpened. He needed more time. I planned a 5-year runway for him to learn, fail, and come back smarter. I told him that. He heard, I suspect, only the word later. Enter Liza. On paper, she was perfect. Event planner, charity boards, college and smooth politeness. She wore white blazers and a watch that cost more than an oven. The first night Adam brought her to dinner, she called me Mrs. Sokolova and complimented the Lantern like it was a museum I occasionally cleaned. I smiled because I have learned to smile at women who don't realize they're underestimating me. The first prick of her needle was small. Mrs. Sokolova, did you mean to display that faded photograph in the lobby? It was my husband holding our infant son in front of the shell of the Lantern, 5 months before the grand opening. It's very vintage. I said yes, I meant it. She smiled wider. Sentimental is sweet, but image is everything. I thought it was a young woman trying to be helpful. What I didn't see, what I refused to see, was the pattern, tiny, precise cuts. Weeks later, she sent me a Pinterest board labeled Lantern Refresh, neutral palette, chrome accents, a modern reception desk that looked like a bank. She'd CC'd Adam, 2 of my managers, and a decorator I'd never met. Just playing, she wrote. Your mother is a visionary, Adam replied. He meant it. He still wanted my approval like a boy wants his mother's applause. Liza replied with a heart emoji and a new link labeled Transition Plan. She was careful. She never raised her voice, never cursed, never criticized Adam to his face. Instead, she tilted rooms. She told the banquet chef I'd approved switching vendors. She told the florist I'd prefer eucalyptus over roses because it photographed cleaner. She told my front desk manager that brand standards required staff to stop calling me Mom Vera in public because it blurred hierarchy. When I corrected her, she apologized with a light laugh and said, of course, then did it again a week later with a different manager. It wasn't just the hotel. It was my house, my coffee, my slippers. She brought me herbal tea for my blood pressure and watched me drink it. She moved my reading glasses so you'll remember to get your eyes checked. She suggested Adam and I use a shared calendar so he can help you more efficiently. She took my son's arm when we crossed the street like she was guiding him away from traffic, away from me. And every time I felt the sting and said nothing, a little bit of Adam slid toward her gravity. The first big shove came in March, 6 months into their courtship. The Lantern had a health inspection. We passed, as we always do, but with a warning about a mislabeled bottle of sanitizer in housekeeping. A week later, a blogger posted, "Is the Lantern slipping?" A smug paragraph about an aging owner and lax standards, complete with photos of smudged lobby glass that I can swear on my husband's grave I had cleaned that morning. The account had 2 followers. The timing was surgical. Liza sent the link to Adam with a concerned face. Reputation management matters, she wrote. Maybe it's time to step in more? I dug. The blogger's domain was new and paid for with a prepaid card. The EXF data on the glass photos matched a phone model I'd seen face down on my breakfast table next to someone's spotless white blazer. I didn't tell Adam. I told myself I might be wrong and that suspicion can rot a mother's heart faster than grief. Meanwhile, the wedding planning began with velocity. Liza wanted the ballroom at the Sea Harbor, not the Lantern. It's neutral, not personal. Fine. I do not use my hotel to stage my son's life. She wanted a guest list of 200. Fine. She wanted her side to handle the AV. Also fine. I wrote a check because my son's happiness, even when it worries me, is my favorite bill to pay. I did not write one check, the transfer she asked Adam to request. Just the shares now, she said at dinner one night, eyes on me, tone weightless. For legal clarity. Adam looked at me like a boy asking for ice cream. I poured tea and said, in 2 years, we'll discuss an initial tranche if you've run departments end to end. Liza smiled at her cup. Of course. I just hate bureaucracy. It kills momentum. That was the first time I saw something in her eyes that wasn't calculation or charm. It was hunger. Then I caught a seam. It was a Thursday in June. Liza came by the Lantern with trays of sample macarons for the wedding. She followed Adam to the office, set her phone on the credenza, and went to the restroom. A message lit the screen, long enough for my old eyes to catch a name at the top. M. The preview line read, "We're still on after he signs?" The next preview line arrived before my restraint did. Yesterday was worth it. Next time, no photos. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. In my hotel, everything that matters leaves a trace. I called Sophia, my head of security, a woman who can track a fruit fly between 2 floors if it buzzes loud enough. I told her to review the last 3 months of rooftop bar footage for Liza, time-stamped past 10 p.m. And any guest passes signed M. I also asked Dimitri at the front desk to bring me the non-guest visitor log for the staff entrance. What am I looking for, Mom Vera? He asked. Patterns, I said. And dates that don't make sense. The pattern made too much sense. Twice a month on Tuesdays, when Adam worked room's inventory late, Liza stopped by to keep him company, and then left by the service elevator 20 minutes after a man in a navy cap signed in as Michael Levin M. The dates matched the mornings Liza arrived to my house with herbal tea and new suggestions. Sophia pulled stills from the roof cameras. In 3 of them, Liza and M stood under a heat lamp in the corner, her hand on his chest, his mouth on hers. The angle wasn't perfect, but it was enough to identify them, especially if you knew what you were looking at. I now did. I did nothing dramatic. I did something deliberate. I emailed myself copies of the footage. I printed the visitor logs. I called a woman named Inna, a forensic accountant who has saved more small hotels from helpful partners than I can count. Follow Liza, I said. On paper, not in heels. 2 weeks later, Inna slid a binder across my kitchen table and pushed aside the herbal tea Liza had left that afternoon. She's registered 2 LLCs in the last year. One holds event contracts. The other invoices the first 4 consulting services with no deliverables. Guess who deposits the checks? Inna tapped a bank statement with a manicured finger. M. Levin. She's paying him out of money your son thinks is going to vendors. We weren't done. Inna found a draft post-nup on Liza's laptop that had once been printed at a copy center and left behind in the trash long enough for a board clerk to post it in a Finders Keepers group online. Liza had annotated it with her favorite weapon, a thin pen, Lantern voting rights immediately, Vera advisory only. A second note in the margin read, if Adam box, pressure via unsafe management narrative. The handwriting matched the labels on my new tea jars. I felt anger like heat, yes, but under it was something icier and far more useful, clarity. I did not tell Adam immediately. I watched a little longer because I am not a woman who accuses without a ledger. Liza's mockery grew bolder. She would correct my staff in front of guests and then scold them for embarrassing her by not accepting the correction. She would whisper to Adam that my memory was slipping. She forgot to give me times for tastings, then told the caterer I had stood them up. Once, she placed a bottle of white wine in my hand in the lounge and whispered, "You deserve to relax," then told Adam later she worried about my afternoons. I poured the wine down the sink and saved the cork as evidence of the length to which she'd go to weaken my voice. When I finally spoke to Adam, it was 2 weeks before the wedding. I did not shout. I stacked the binder on the table and said his name the way I said it when he was 5 and had hidden a broken toy behind his back. Look. He looked, page by page, at dates and receipts and still frames with Liza's hair tucked behind her ear the way she does when she wants to be kissed. He looked at the visitor log and murmured, "There must be an explanation." He looked at the draft post-nup and said, "We never discussed this." She wouldn't. He looked at me like I had built a trap and pushed him into it. "Mom," he said slowly, a softness and a warning. "Maybe you're misreading. Maybe somebody is trying to hurt her. Or you." "Or you," I said. He rubbed his forehead. "You never liked her." "That's not relevant." "It is to me." He closed the binder like closing his eyes would erase what they'd seen. "You've never believed I was ready." "Maybe that's what this is about." "Adam, I am literally handing you my life's work piece by piece. I am not handing it to a stranger wrapped in paper that says wife." He stood up, sat down, stood up again. I let him move around the kitchen like a man looking for a door in a windowless room. "I will ask her," he said at last, the way he used to say "I will ask coach," meaning I will hope for a different rule. "We're 2 weeks out." "I can't. You can't expect me to just." He gestured at the binder like it was a fire I'd set. "This is insane." "Insane," I repeated, not to mock him, but to let the word exhaust itself. 2 days before the wedding, I said finally, "Come back. If you still think I made this up to hurt you, I will say nothing during the ceremony. But if you can look at her and believe she deserves you more than she deserves the lantern, I will stand up for my son one last time and let you stand there with her." I did not say the other option aloud. I was superstitious then and tired, and a little bit in love with the possibility that he would prove me wrong and toss the binder in the trash. He didn't come back the next day. He came back 2 days before the wedding with Liza. That told me everything about who was driving. She wore that white blazer like armor. She sat at my kitchen table and laughed when I showed her the stills. "I work with vendors," she said. "We hug. We kiss. They're European." She called the visitor log cute and the draft post-nup a copyright violation. Then the tears found her prettiest angle. "Mrs. Sokolova, I have tried so hard to earn your love. You've resented me since Adam chose me. If you wanted me gone, you could have just said so." Adam's jaw tightened the way it does when he believes he is being noble. "Mom, this is cruel," he said softly. "If you have more, show it now. If not, please stop." There was more, but what I had left wasn't paper. It was a living, breathing truth you couldn't explain away with hugs or Europe. I had the rooftop and Liza's calendar and one more Tuesday yesterday. I did not argue. I poured tea. I let them leave. Then I called Sophia and told her to clear the back entrance camera angles, confirm my guest Wi-Fi logs for one more night, and book us a man named Pavel who can run audiovisual systems with his eyes closed and one hand tied to a wedding arch. I also called Anna. "If everything goes to plan," I said, "tomorrow you'll email me 3 PDFs with clean timestamps and a subject line I can forward from my phone with a trembling thumb." "You plan to tremble?" she asked dryly. "I plan to make it look like I'm too old to do this on purpose." The last 48 hours before the wedding tasted metallic. Liza posted a photo of her manicure with the caption "Lucky to marry my best friend." Adam texted me a picture of the boutonniere, like we were normal, like the binder had not happened. I sat at my kitchen table with my husband's photograph beside my cup and whispered, "Don't let me lose him by saving him." The day before the ceremony, Liza brought me a glass bottle wrapped in tissue. "Olive oil," she said. "From the grove where we got engaged." They had gotten engaged next to a parking lot near a food truck that sold truffle fries. I thanked her anyway and set the bottle aside. On my phone, Ina's PDFs arrived and waited like snakes in a basket. Wedding day. The Sea Harbor Ballroom was a magazine spread, whites and orchids, gold cutlery, a band too good for daytime, waiters whose bow ties looked tight enough to hurt. I wore a navy dress that sucked my stomach into a memory of youth and put my hair up high because my husband used to say it made my neck look like a swan's. I kissed my grandsons, hugged my daughter, and took my seat 3 rows from the front where mothers sit when they want to be seen and be silent. When Adam walked down the aisle, He looked like a man walking a bridge made of lace. He didn't look at me. He looked at Liza. She was stunning because she is, and because people like her know how to turn themselves into light. I let myself grieve the wedding I wanted: simple, lantern lawn, late oranges on the trees, my staff sneaking plates of shrimp to the kids, and then I put grief in my pocket. I had work to do. After the vows, after the first dance, after the speeches began, and before anyone could decide what the rest of their lives would look like, I stood up. I did not clink a glass. I didn't need attention. I had a screen. Before I speak, I said, taking the microphone the bandleader offered me with a relief in his eyes I will remember until my last breath, I want to show you something beautiful. The projector snapped on. The room turned silver. A picture of Adam appeared, 15 years old, braces, skinny arms around me in the lantern kitchen. People smiled. Liza squeezed his hand like she was the benevolent producer of the show. I clicked to a picture of my husband painting the last letter of lantern. People murmured. Then the third slide arrived, yesterday's date in the corner, rooftop camera angle, Liza in a black dress, M in his navy cap, his hand at her waist, her mouth at his. Silence doesn't make a sound. It makes a room. This room became something else. Vera, the venue coordinator, hissed near my shoulder, but I didn't move. The next frame. The service elevator opening. Liza and M stepping in. The door closing. Timestamps matching the guest Wi-Fi log that Ina's PDF floated over in the corner like a television network overlay. I did not narrate. I clicked. The fourth slide was text messages. You'll have access to accounts after he signs, from Liza. Make sure his mother can't interfere, from M. I've been interfering since before you were born, I said into the microphone without thinking, and half the room exhaled a gasping laugh they instantly regretted. And then Liza moved. She didn't cry. She didn't faint. She marched toward me across the dance floor, picking up a champagne flute as if she planned to propose a toast. When she reached me, she didn't raise the glass in the air. She turned it, calmly, and spat into it, a clean, white pearl of contempt landing like punctuation against crystal. Then, so no one would mistake her point, she spat again, this time on the shoulder of my navy dress. That's when the band stopped playing and someone's aunt started praying. That's when the groom's father took a step forward and the bride's mother took 2 steps back. That's when Adam's face performed a terrible math, what he wanted, what he had, what he refused to see, and what was now on a screen, 6 feet tall and dated yesterday. The wedding ended 5 minutes later. But not for me, not yet. My part wasn't revenge. It was rescue. Rescue doesn't taste like victory. It tastes like salt. 2 days earlier, he had not believed me. Now, in a room that smelled of orchids and electricity, he looked at me like a man who has found the door in a windowless room and isn't sure if he's allowed to walk through it. By dawn, the video would be everywhere, but the thing that actually saved us wasn't on a screen at all. It was a spreadsheet with 2 missing zeros that proved Liza's plan didn't end with a kiss on a rooftop. It ended with a lien on my hotel and me signing my name under pressure I had not agreed to feel. First, a correction for anyone who heard gossip misremembered as truth. I didn't wait for vows. I didn't wait for a first dance. I cut in before the officiant cleared his throat, when the room was soft with expectation and my son still believed the future would be an unbroken line. People repeat that I waited because it sounds more theatrical. I'm not a playwright. I was a mother with a clock in her ear. After the spit, the ballroom devolved into little circles of the same sentence said 3 ways. Is this real? How could she? How could you? Liza's mother made a sound like a kettle. Liza herself did not cry. She turned to Adam and spoke softly enough that only a few of us heard. You will fix this, and then she walked toward the doors, leaving white orchids trembling in her wake. Adam didn't follow immediately. He stood near me, empty hands hanging at his sides, and stared at the screen freezing on her face angled toward M's. I took the microphone and set it down. The room waited for me to speak again like you wait for thunder after lightning. I didn't. I nodded to Pavel. The screen went black. Sophia, already positioned by the exit, stepped out behind Liza. I'd asked her before the ceremony to keep a respectful distance from the bride unless my signal came. She had it. I didn't want a scene. I wanted a boundary. Miss Levin, Sophia said to M, who had been bold or foolish enough to show up in a navy suit like any other guest, you'll come with me. He tried to protest that he was an invited cousin. You signed into our service entrance last night as a vendor, she said. Today you're not on any list. Don't confuse categories. She directed him down a hallway where a security office borrowed from the adjacent conference center had a camera, a table, and a chair that made men sit straighter than they planned. Ina called me as the band packed away hope and napkins. Check your email, she said. Northbridge Capital moved your refinancing meeting up to tomorrow morning. I have the calendar invite forwarded from Adam's account. It was sent by assistant at Lantern Transition. Calm. That domain was registered 2 months ago. 2 missing zeros? I asked, remembering the way Ina teased me when I skimmed. You'll see the term sheet. The prepayment penalty line, exactly where an eager son might not read if someone he trusts says, initial here, has 30 months instead of 3. And there's a clause that triggers voting rights if senior management is declared unfit by the board. The board, which right now is you and Adam. He signs declare and she files declare, I said. After he signs, Ina said, echoing the message on Liza's screen. I hung up and found my son in the corner where the officiant had stood holding a black folder full of words he didn't get to say. We leave now, I told Adam. We go to the Lantern. Mom. Now, I said, and he recognized the timbre in my voice from 100 childhood emergencies, broken arm, kitchen fire, lost at the market at 4. He nodded. We moved like people who have done this together before. I told my daughter to take the grandchildren home. I told the bandleader we'd cover the full contract. I told the venue manager I'd pay for everything early. There are mercies you can afford when you've planned for emergencies your whole life. Sophia met us at the car. M is recorded, she said. He arrived earlier than Liza. He borrowed a staff uniform from a friendly caterer, walked the service corridors, snapped photos of the breaker boxes and the fire panel. Yesterday was a rehearsal. Today was a finale, I said. Not quite. She handed me a phone. On it, a recording. Liza on the roof last week, her voice pitched low. You'll get your consulting fee and your finder's fee when the refinance closes, she told M. Just keep Adam feeling like he's saving his mother from herself. From what? M asked. From being tired, Liza said. People blame age. We'll give them what they expect. I put the phone in my purse like you put away a knife you know you will need but don't want to look at. At the Lantern, the lobby smelled like lemons and warm stone. Dmitri was at the desk. He handed Adam a stack of envelopes without meeting his eyes. Left for you, he said. By Liza's assistant. On top was a printout clipped to a manila folder, Northbridge Capital. Beneath it, a crisp, friendly term sheet. Adam flipped the first page and swallowed. She handled the scheduling, he said, an apology and a defense and a confession in 6 small words. Ina flagged the calendar, I said. You'll read every line now, and then you'll sleep here in the office. I can't sleep here. You can. You will. The blankets in the linen closet don't care that you got dressed up this morning. He didn't argue. I think he was relieved to be told what to do in a world that had just slipped from wood to ice. We sat with the term sheet. Ina arrived like a storm cellar, practical, ugly only if you don't plan to survive. She pointed to clauses and had him read them aloud. He kept stopping to press his fingers against his eyes. We pay a fee if we exit early, he read. We get favorable rates if we restructure the board to include independent oversight. Selected from a list provided by the lender, Ina said. Which is not illegal, but do you see how it becomes personal when the independent director is a partner's friend? He nodded. Here, fitness clause. If there's evidence of decline or... I didn't let him say the word. They will spell me incompetent and call it help, I said quietly. Then they will call you overwhelmed and call it mercy. He stared at the paper as if it might blink first. I never wanted. You wanted speed, I said. They gave you speed. He closed the folder like it hurt his hands. What do we do now? Emergency injunction, Ina said. We freeze any change in ownership or debt for 72 hours. Then we look under every rock. You can do that? If you sign here and here, she said, sliding him a different stack of forms. You are co-owner. For once, let that be useful. He signed. I signed. We faxed. Yes, faxed, because some judges still trust paper more than portals. While Sophia stood sentinel, we waited for a clerk's stamp. The pause felt like that moment when the elevator stutters between floors and your stomach doesn't know which building to love. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed. Temporary restraining order granted. I didn't cry. I breathed, the way you do when a wave breaks before it pulls you under. At 12:10 a.m., Adam fell asleep on the office sofa, shoes off, tie loose, his face heavy with the realization that love can be true in one direction and false in the other. I watched him sleep and remembered the first night he dozed on that sofa at 19, having declared he'd work the night audit just to see, and then snored through a fire alarm test. I made coffee I didn't need and walked the halls. Housekeeping carts tucked into closets. The faint scent of chlorine from the pool. The elevator mirror reflecting a woman who looked like strength sewn to fatigue. The lantern at night is as familiar to me as my own childhood street. I can find the squeak in the fourth stair without turning on the light. I tried to be angry, and I was, but under it was a steadier emotion. Responsibility. Anger teaches you where to point. Responsibility teaches you what to carry. At 3:02 a.m., Liza called Adam's phone 6 times in a row. He didn't wake. On the 7th, she called mine. Mrs. Sokolova, she said, flat voice, no charm left to spend. You made a scene. I showed a fact. She exhaled, like boredom. You won't win. People will think what they want. And Adam is impulsive. He will apologize to me by morning. That's who he is. Not tonight, I said. There's a court order. Nothing moves. Not even your lender. That phone call came from me, she said. Northbridge takes my calls. You're a hotelier with sentimental photos in your lobby. I'm the future. Do you remember what you wrote on that draft? I asked. Lantern voting rights immediately. Vera advisory only. You really should stop reading other people's notes, she said. You really should stop underestimating women who mop their own floors, I said. We learn where dirt hides. She hung up. A minute later, she texted Adam a photo, a glass with a single white pearl clinging to the rim. You humiliated me, the caption read. Fix it. The morning brought light and other people's opinions. A cousin had filmed the spit. It was already cut with slow motion, dramatic strings, and text overlays reading she did what. And mother-in-law exposes bride. I didn't authorize any of it. The internet is a theater with a million ushers and no manager. I feared for Adam. I feared for the lantern's reputation. I feared for what stories do to the truth when they're asked to dance. We met with our attorney at 8 a.m. A man named Kuhn who smiles like a cat that knows where the cream is hidden. He set his phone on my conference table and said, "Congratulations on the TRO. Now we write letters. 1 to Northbridge. Stand down. 1 to Liza. Spoliation notice. Preserve all evidence. 1 to M. Cease and desist for misrepresentation and a demand for his communications with any competitors." He glanced at the ceiling camera and waved. "Hello, Sophia." "Hi, Kuhn," she replied over the speaker. "I've already mirrored Liza's assistant's cloud storage. No deletion yet. But she's using disappearing messages with 2 numbers saved as florist and photo booth. One is a prepaid, the other traces to an acquisitions firm that tried to buy the lantern 3 years ago. Halvorson and Pritchard, I said. They offered $17 million. I laughed and offered them a room with a partial ocean view and a breakfast voucher. Kuhn tapped his pen. If M is on their payroll and Liza funneled vendor fees to him, that's conspiracy to interfere. We don't lead with that. We let them guess how much we know. At noon, Adam woke with his phone against his chest and a new message from Liza. "Let's talk alone. She's controlling you." He looked at me like a man deciding whether the life raft is real. "I should hear her out," he said. "You can hear her," I said. "Not alone." We met Liza at a cafe 2 blocks from the lantern where tourists order avocado toast and pretend to be locals. She arrived in black, no ring, no apology. M wasn't with her. He was too busy scrubbing his social media and pretending to be a man with hobbies instead of a man with invoices paid from invented LLCs. You've embarrassed the family, Liza began. No hello. You embarrassed yourself, I said. Adam, she said, pivoting. We can fix this. Your mother is telling a story that flatters her. She's good at it. She's made a career on hospitality. But what happens next is business. Adults handle business. He rubbed his eyes. There's a video. I was saying goodbye, she said. To a friend. To a vendor. To someone who helped make our wedding beautiful. Yesterday, he said. I am allowed to have a life, she said. I shouldn't have to explain it. You know how your mother can be. Careful, I said. Territorial, she finished. She never wanted to let go. She creates crises so she can solve them. It makes her feel necessary. I let her talk. People reveal more when they think they are winning. When she paused, I slid across the table a printed email with North Bridges letterhead. Who sent this? I asked. She glanced. Our assistant. Your assistant works for an entity you formed without disclosing it to me or Adam, I said. You're not his assistant. You're your own. And this refinance would have installed your independent director at my board table. She rolled her eyes. Vera, everything is a conspiracy to you. I lowered my voice. If you wanted the lanterns so badly you were willing to lie to my son, at least have the decency to admit it in front of the espresso machine. For the first time since the ballroom, something flickered across her face that wasn't certainty. It wasn't guilt either. It was contempt getting tired. Adam, she said, reaching for his hand. He didn't give it. You're going to be someone, she continued. Or you're going to be someone's son. Decide. He swallowed. You were with him yesterday. You lied to me 2 days ago when my mother showed you the binder. I managed the optics, she said. Because I knew she'd turn anything into a weapon. The rooftop isn't optics, he said. He pushed his chair back. We're done. No, she said, sharp. You don't get to do this to me without paying for it. What would you like? I asked. A check for the inconvenience of being caught? Reputation damages, she said. Half the vendors refuse to process refunds because of your little spectacle. And my parents. Your parents deserve an apology, I said. I will write them one. You will not like the second paragraph. She stood. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It hasn't even been audited yet. That afternoon, Kuhn filed a petition to formalize the separation of marital assets pending investigation. Yes, marital. The ceremony hadn't completed, but the civil paperwork had been signed in a quiet side room an hour earlier for simplicity on travel documents, a trick I recognized and hadn't managed to block without giving away my hand too soon. That meant there was a marriage. It also meant there was law. Law isn't romance. It is arithmetic. We collected more arithmetic. Sophia found footage of M meeting a man outside Halvorsen and Pritchard's office and sliding him a folder with the lantern's last 3 years of occupancy reports, procurement logs, and a proposed modernization plan, matching the Pinterest boards Liza had sent me months ago. Ina traced payments from Liza's Events by Liza, LLC to Mariner Consulting, which shared a mailbox with a printing shop and a wall with nothing. In the middle of our hunting, the town woke up. The lantern's phones rang with questions. Some callers were concerned. Some were gleeful. Some were journalists performing sincerity like a script. I drafted a statement for staff to use at the desk and on the phones. We love our family. We love our guests. We don't comment on private matters. The lantern is open and welcoming as ever. It was true and insufficient. Truth is often insufficient when a story has better lighting. That evening, one of my housekeepers, Anya, knocked on my office door and held out a small glass bottle wrapped in tissue. You left this, she said. The olive oil, from a grove near a food truck. I smiled. Keep it, I said. Make a salad of your enemies. She shook her head. I think this is not oil. She twisted the cap. The scent rising from it wasn't olives. It was something sharper, chemical in a way that made the back of my throat close. I didn't touch it. I called Sophia. She brought a test kit she kept for a very different set of problems involving guests and inventive party favors. The liquid fizzed when it shouldn't. Not dangerous in a drop, Sophia said, but an irritant. Skin, eyes. If this had been in a dressing on your table and you rubbed your eye. I thought of Liza handing me herbal tea and moving my glasses. I thought of the blog post about my slipping standards. Death by 1,000 small humiliations and a few well-timed rashes, evidence toward unfit management. Kuhn advised caution. We flag it, we don't accuse, he said. If they're as arrogant as you describe, they'll accuse themselves. They obliged. The next morning, Liza's assistant sent an email to Adam and CC'd 3 vendors, confirming that we had discussed grandmother Vera's sensitivity and to ensure all dressings are served separately for her, adding a heart emoji that made me so angry I had to sit down. They'll say it's kindness, I told Kuhn. They always do, he said. It's astonishing how many knives come in gift wrap. 2 days into the TRO, we got the letter that tilted the floor, a scanned copy of a document filed with the county recorder's office. Limited power of attorney, it read. It granted Liza authority to act on Adam's behalf for time-sensitive matters pertaining to marital property and pre-closing financing for family business operations. It was dated 1 week earlier. Adam stared at it like a photograph of a crime in which he might be the victim and the accessory. I didn't sign this, he said. I signed something with the caterer about plate counts. Sophia zoomed in on the signature. This is your hand, she said gently. Just not on this page. Someone lifted it from another document. Kuhn tapped the corner with a capped pen. Happily, the notary stamp is fake. Crosshatch pattern is wrong. We'll nail them on that. But for now, Northbridge will argue they acted in reliance on apparent authority if anything moved. Our TRO bought us time. Use it. Time is money when you own a hotel. It is also mercy when your son realizes his life is a ledger and love has been entered on the wrong side. Adam's shame came in waves. Sometimes he sat with me and asked questions like a student late to class. Sometimes he disappeared to the laundry to fold towels until his hands remembered what competence feels like. On the 3rd day, Halvorsen and Pritchard blinked first. Their attorney sent a letter clarifying that they had no ongoing acquisition discussions with any member of the Sokolova family. Kuhn replied with a single-page exhibit, a still of M handing a folder to their associate with a timestamp and an arrow. We didn't accuse. We didn't need to. He attached the spoliation notice again. At home that night, I took out the photograph of my husband and Adam in front of the skeleton of the lantern. You would have hated this, I told my husband. And you would have adored solving it. He wasn't there to answer, but the house had absorbed his voice over the years. Sometimes the refrigerator hum sounded like steady. Sometimes the faucet drip sounded like careful. The next morning, I called a staff meeting. Housekeeping, front desk, maintenance, kitchen, everyone who kept us standing. I told them what I could say without naming names, and I said what I never like to say. If you are approached for a comment, you say nothing. If you are promised anything for a story, you say no. If you feel unsafe, you come to me. They nodded. A sea of people who've watched owners fall apart and hotels change flags because someone mistook reputation for a free meal. We've been through hurricanes, I reminded them. We know how to board up without making it look like surrender. At noon, Liza made her move. Her lawyer filed for an emergency modification to the TRO, arguing that I had weaponized a family disagreement to retain control over a failing asset and that third-party financing was necessary to prevent imminent default. The word failing made my body go cold, then hot. We were not failing. We were tight, like everyone after a slow winter, but every bill was paid. She was building the unsafe management narrative in a courtroom now, not just over tea. We went to court. The judge was a woman in her 50s with a streak in her hair that made me trust her more than I should have. Liza sat 2 rows ahead in a jacket the color of expensive paper. M wasn't there. He had taken a sudden trip to visit family, which is what people write on forms when they mean find a hole. Kuhn spoke like water over stone, never loud, always moving. Your Honor, our client is in no default, he said. The term sheet would impose onerous penalties that benefit a lender aligned with a potential acquirer whose associate has had improper access to our client's confidential information. We are not asking the court to pick a family side. We are asking the court to hold still while facts stand up. Liza's attorney argued what I expected. I was old school, inflexible, clinging. He used legacy as an insult. He did not say spit. The judge asked for numbers. Ina provided them. Occupancy, cash flow, seasonal projections, loan covenants, vendor timelines. The judge read for a long time. Then she looked up at me. "Mrs. Sokolova," she said, "do you intend to retire?" "I intend to teach," I said. "Retirement is a story other people tell about women they are trying to move." "Mr. Sokolov," she said to Adam, "do you intend to learn?" He stood. "Yes," he said, voice unsteady. "And to apologize to my mother in public when this is done." The courtroom let out a breath it didn't know it was holding. "Motion denied," the judge said crisply to Liza's side. "The temporary restraining order stands. I will see you all in 10 days with a full accounting. In the meantime, any transfer of authority or debt is frozen. And counsel, if I see one more document with an irregular notary seal, I will personally refer it for investigation." We won a round. Not the game. Not yet. Outside the courthouse, sunlight bounced off windshields and made everyone squint like they were pretending not to stare. Liza walked past us without a word, but her shoulder brushed Adam's. It wasn't an accident. It was a claim. He didn't flinch. He turned to me. "What now?" "Now," I said, "we go back to work." Work was not glamorous. It was spreadsheets and vendor calls and a meeting with the florist to assure her that, despite what she'd been told by a woman who recently sent hearts in her emails, we were not replacing roses with eucalyptus. It was a late-night staff meal with pasta and meatballs because solidarity likes warm food. It was Adam taking the night audit again and Sophia walking the perimeter twice as often. It was also preparing for the next punch, because people like Liza don't stop at court. They go for cameras. The following afternoon, a reporter from a local station stood outside the Lantern asking passersby if they'd stay at a hotel run by a controversial matriarch. I walked out, introduced myself, and invited her in. "You can film the lobby," I said. "You can talk to my staff. You can even see the laundry because our folding is a miracle. What you cannot do is turn my hotel into a set for someone else's tragedy for clicks. If you want to talk mother-son business succession with intelligence, I'll make you coffee and give you an hour. If you want a spit replay, the internet will be happy to help." She took the coffee and the hour. The piece aired that night. It showed Dmitri smiling, Anya laughing, Adam carrying a stack of sheets like a penitent. It showed me, not the spit. The internet still did its thing, but now it had to share the stage with a thing I prefer, a fact. Liza, boxed out of the finance and the PR she had planned, went messier. Anonymous accounts posted that the Lantern had bedbugs. We do not. Sophia immediately posted our inspection certificates and welcomed any health official at any time, any room. A 2-star review appeared that described a lobby smelling of old people and lemon. I took a picture of a lemon and captioned it "Guilty as charged" because sometimes humor is disarmament. Ina kept pulling threads. In a nested folder in Liza's assistant's cloud, she found a draft transition memo to staff. It opened with a line I will never forget. "As we move into a new era, please remember that change can be uncomfortable, especially for those who have been here a long time." The tone was polite. The content was eviction. She had planned to replace my 2 longest-serving managers within 60 days with candidates better aligned with modern standards, which, based on their resumes, meant obedient to outside ownership. 10 days later, we went back to court with our full accounting and our full stack of arrows. Kuhn was ready. So was Liza's new lawyer, a different one, younger, angrier. "Your Honor," he said, "our client has been defamed." "By the camera?" the judge asked. "By the publication of private images," he corrected, quick. "By the narrative built around them." Kuhn was polite. Mrs. Sokolova didn't narrate. She pressed play. The judge turned to Liza. "Miss Ivanova," she said, using a last name Liza had started phasing out when it didn't make the right sound next to certain invitations. "Did you kiss Mr. Levin on the date in question?" "Yes," Liza said, cool. "Were you engaged to Mr. Sokolov at the time?" "Yes." "Did you facilitate communications between Mr. Levin and a firm interested in acquiring the Lantern?" "I talked to many vendors," she said. That wasn't the question, the judge said. Answer it. Yes, Liza said. No apology. No shame. Just yes, like a door closing. Thank you, the judge said. She turned to us. Your restraining order is extended for 60 days. In that time, Mr. Sokolov and Mrs. Sokolova will propose a succession plan with milestones and oversight that is not selected by outside parties. Ms. Ivanova, you are restrained from contacting Lantern staff and vendors for any business purpose. Any violation will be sanctioned. We walked out into a different kind of sunlight. Not victory. Not yet. But a day with fewer shadows. That night, Adam and I sat at the bar on the roof of the Lantern where this had all begun. In a way, heat lamp, corner, camera. The ocean was black with silver veins. I thought I was rescuing you, he said. From the part of you that never rests. I know, I said. That part is not a disease. It's an inheritance. I don't know if I can do this, he confessed. The hotel. The eyes. The waiting for someone to trick me again. You don't have to know today, I said. You have to show up tomorrow. He nodded. What if she comes after me for alimony? He asked, half joking, half afraid. She can try, I said. She would have to stand still long enough for the papers to find her. He laughed then, a small, true sound. The kind that makes grandmothers believe the world is fixable. Downstairs, Sophia pinged my phone. Package at the desk. Hand delivered. I went down expecting a subpoena or a threat disguised as flowers. Dmitri handed me a thick envelope with my name printed in a neat, anonymous font. Inside were printed emails. The first was from M to a Halvorsen partner. She's in. Wedding is cover. Refinance closes Monday. We'll be able to declare the mother advisory only within a month. The second was from Liza to M. I want the rooftop reopened before summer. The Lantern will be mine to host whoever I want. The third was unsigned. You don't know me. I work for them. I am tired of what they do. This is what you need for the next hearing. I looked up at Dmitri. Who brought this? A courier, he said. Didn't say. I took the envelope up to the roof and laid the pages on the bar like a tarot. Someone inside Halvorsen is done, I told Adam. Or setting us up, he said, because he was learning. Either way, I said, we can verify. Email headers don't lie as easily as people do. We would verify. We would continue. We would build a succession plan with teeth and grace. But first, there was one more twist waiting in the linen closet of our lives, and it arrived 2 mornings later at 7:11 a.m. Expressed mail, signature required, a notice from the county recorder confirming receipt of a deed of trust against the Lantern's rooftop bar entity, filed at 6:29 a.m. with a stamped power of attorney we had already proven fake. How did anything file with the TRO in place? Adam asked, panic rising like a tide. Kuhn answered on speaker, his voice clipped. Someone found a crack. The Rooftop LLC is a separate entity you formed years ago to isolate liquor liability. The TRO named the parent and the hotel, not the rooftop. They snuck a lean through the side door. We stared at the notice like it was a map to a fire we couldn't see yet. The rooftop was our sunset. It was our margin. It was the corner where Liza had kissed and plotted. Now it was collateral in a deal we had stopped everywhere else. They wanted control of the view, I said. Because people forgive a lot under pretty light. Can we reverse it? Adam asked. Yes, Kuhn said. But they bought themselves time and headlines. Headlines, I repeated, remembering the internet's appetite. Then we'll feed it something better to chew. I stood at the window and looked out at the roof where the heat lamps stood like sentries. My reflection looked back, older than yesterday, but not smaller. I called Sophia. Seal the roof, I said. No events. No reservations. Put up a sign that says closed for private restoration. That will make them crazy. We'll lose money, Adam said. For a week, I said. We'll buy ourselves a story that isn't theirs. What story? He asked. The one about the grandmother who shut down her prettiest room to keep her family from burning, I said. And about the woman who taught her son how to win without becoming what he fought. He looked at me like a child looks at a teacher who has announced a pop quiz. Can we do it? We already are, I said. I shut down my prettiest room to save the rest of the building, and 9 days later I reopened it with my son reading from a contract that sounded like vows. Between those two doors, closed for private restoration and welcome back, Liza tried one last trick, the kind that works on owners who don't wear flats to the courthouse. We started by sealing the roof. Signs on the elevator. Bookings canceled with apologies and vouchers. Staff curious, but steady. I walked up there every morning anyway, past heaters like mute soldiers and planters with stubborn mint, and stood at the railing where the ocean breaks itself into small problems. "You are not my trouble today," I told the water. "You get to be beautiful." Kuhn filed an emergency application to fold the rooftop entity into the restraining order. Ina redrafted our org chart so a judge wouldn't have to squint to see how the pieces touched. Sophia took the stamped lean copy apart like a mechanic with a sick engine. "Header anomalies," she said, tapping lines of tiny text. Filed the minute the clerk's window opened. Same IP address as the fake notary. "And the notary?" I asked. She smiled without joy. "Exists, just not here. The man is in another state, with a license number lifted from an online directory. I already have the affidavit. He has never met any of us and is very offended that his stamp was used on a rooftop he has not had the pleasure to drink on." We went to the recorder's office in person. It's hard to ignore a woman who shows up with a stack of exhibits, a lawyer who says please is a threat, and a notary from 3 time zones away calling in on speaker. The clerk stamped an administrative hold. "The lien isn't erased," she warned, "but it can't be enforced while the court sorts it out." "That's all I need," I said. Time and a broom. On day 2 of the closure, the fire marshal arrived with 2 deputies and a face that said someone had just dialed him with urgency. "Anonymous report," he told me kindly. "Overcapacity on the roof. Unsafe propane storage. Guests locked out in a dispute." "We are closed," I said, sweeping my arm at the empty bar and a clipboard schedule with nothing but handwritten excess, but come. Inspect. Make us a grade." He did. He checked storage, extinguishers, elevator override, guardrails. He peered into corners where dust likes to squat. He made notes. He closed the book. "You're cleaner than the station kitchen," he said. "Whatever dispute this is, it's not about safety. But someone wants a record. Consider my record compliant." I could have hugged him. Instead, I signed his form and walked him out. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Want me to run the call?" she asked. "Half of anonymous is lazy." "Wait till we have the court order," I said. "I want the pattern, not just the name." The whistleblower wrote again, this time to Kuhn's firm, not to me. He offered to meet. We chose the quiet corner of a public library because libraries have cameras and a sense of order I trust. He was young, thinner than his voice on the phone, and careful, like a man who has finally decided to be brave and is afraid he will regret it. He worked, he said, on the strategy side at Halvorsen and Pritchard. He'd been asked to model scenarios, one where the Lantern refinanced and took on friendly oversight, one where the Lantern stumbled and needed a rescue, and one where reputational headwinds cleared an acquisition at a discount. He slid a thumb drive across the table. "They told me it's just numbers," he said. "But numbers become doors the wrong people walk through." "Why no?" I asked. "Why help us?" He blinked. "Because I watched the video," he said simply. I heard the room go quiet. I thought about my mother. We verified the data. We didn't trust the gift, we tested it. The Slack downloads matched email headers. A memo labeled transition narrative used phrases so familiar from Liza's mouth I could hear them: legacy friction, modernization, perception of decline. M appeared in 3 chains as external vendor liaison. His invoices were attached. When Kuhn filed exhibits in court 2 days later, he did it like a surgeon lays out instruments, clean, precise, numbered. Liza pivoted to a story I'd anticipated. Her attorney filed a petition accusing us of online harassment and publication of private images. The words were neat shoes that didn't fit the feet wearing them. Kuhn responded without adjectives. Footage was captured by a private security camera at a business where petitioner is a frequent guest, he wrote. Footage was timestamped with evidence of related activity relevant to imminent financial harm. Footage was displayed to prevent an ongoing fraud. The judge set a hearing for the following Tuesday and noted, with judicial dryness, I appreciated that self-inflicted reputational damage is not a basis for relief. On Monday morning, a courier left flowers at the desk with a card for me. I don't accept congratulations for surviving, but I smelled the lilies anyway. Sophia sniffed the card, then broke it open over a tray in the back office. Inside was a printed QR code. When scanned, it linked to a burner website that announced in big friendly type, "The Lantern's Truth." The page contained 3 blocks of text. Her son is controlling. She hides old problems. A rebrand will protect jobs. At the bottom, a logo, Lantern Transition. I called Inna. How many domains can they register before I get bored? More than you think, she said cheerfully. But every website leaves a footprint. We'll follow the shoe size. We reached the Tuesday hearing with our rooftop paperwork rearranged like a jigsaw where every interlocking piece was a signature. The judge overturned the lien, not with drama, just logic. Fraudulent seal, faulty power of attorney, entity naming games, she said. Counsel, if you wish to pursue creative finance, do it without misrepresentations. Ms. Ivanova, consider this your warning. Next time I will consider sanctions. Liza kept her face calm and her hand on the strap of her bag, like she was holding onto a ledge. But it wasn't over. They never end quietly. When a plan fails in daylight, people like Liza reach for shadows. That night, Em sent Adam a message that read like a dare. I have photos of your housekeeping closet and a timeline that says you hide health violations. Pay for my silence. It was small time in a way that insulted the sophistication of their earlier moves. I felt offended on behalf of their ambition. Adam didn't answer. He forwarded it to Sophia and Kuhn. The next afternoon, M was detained on a bench outside a co-working space while a detective asked him if he knew the word extortion. He said he didn't. The detective explained. We didn't need the arrest to feel safe. Safety is not something someone else can grant you. But it didn't hurt to see consequence knock on a door that had tried to hide. Liza tried one more move that could have been clever if the rest of her hadn't been tired. A petition to annul the marriage on the basis of duress experienced at the ceremony, coupled with a demand for temporary support that would include access to marital business resources to prevent undue hardship. Kuhn smiled when he read it. She wants an annulment and alimony, he said. She wants to be single and supported. We didn't fight the annulment. Fraud is a cleaner blade than divorce. We filed our own on grounds of misrepresentation. The court schedule is slow because courts eat calendars for breakfast and still ask for lunch, but the direction was clear. This wedding would be remembered for the part where it ended before it began. With the rooftop lien gone and the legal posture stable, we turned to the harder part, building something that wouldn't break the next time a clever person wanted my son to hurry. Kuhn introduced a consultant I expected to dislike, a succession planner who wore plain suits and listened like a priest. He asked for our history, our fights, our promises that failed. He asked Adam why he wanted the lantern and asked me why I didn't trust him yet. He wrote on a whiteboard not with boxes and arrows, but with verbs: learn, decide, inform, audit, rest. We wrote a plan that wasn't a fantasy. 18 months. For rotations, operations, finance, sales, and risk. Monthly reviews run by 2 independents we chose together, a retired GM who once turned a highway motel into a local legend, and a nonprofit director who knows how to balance budgets you can't cheat. Me in the chair, Adam at the table, both of us accountable. Milestones tied to real outcomes, labor efficiency targets that don't bruise people, vendor renegotiations that don't publish themselves as scandals, banquet margins improved without telling the chef how to salt. At 9 months, a tranche of voting shares into a trust with a calm trustee who has no patience for drama. At 18, a transfer if, and only if, the lantern is steadier than today by metrics we agreed were not just numbers, but signs of health. Topic 5. The consultant said near the end, is legacy. What do you want this place to be when you both are gone? I didn't look at the photograph in my purse. I didn't need to. A school, I said. For everyone who works here. Not a brochure word. A place where if you've stood behind the desk for a decade, You can bring your daughter to the kitchen and show her where college started. A place where people learn to carry weight without dropping their own. Adam swallowed. He wrote something on his own notepad I pretended not to see, but later he left it on my desk like an apology transformed into a plan. Lantern Foundation, childcare stipends, night classes on site, emergency fund for staff. We kept the roof closed through all of this. Rumors bloomed like mold in a damp corner. The internet asked if we'd found asbestos. The city leaned in to see if we were hiding an oracle up there. Halvorsen rolled out a new statement project elsewhere that looked suspiciously like the one they'd drafted for us. Liza stayed quiet in public, which is to say she raged in group chats with locked names and let friends defend her with phrases like, "No one knows what goes on in a marriage." She didn't understand that no one had to. Everyone had already watched what went on at a wedding. When it was time to reopen, we did not announce it with fireworks. We posted a simple line, "The roof is ready. See you at sunset." We kept reservations to half for week 1 and told the staff to take their time. We bought new lemons because apparently that's our scent, and polished the railing where a certain spit once landed, though I had scrubbed that spot the night itself until it shone like a mirror. Before guests arrived, I invited the staff upstairs. Not for a photo, for a talk. I stood where the heat lamp made everyone comfortable and said, "You kept the lantern lit while we played in courtrooms." I will never forget that. Then I turned to Adam. "You have words." He did. He surprised me by unfolding a sheet of paper. He spoke without performing. "I fell for a story where my mother was the problem," he said. "I forgot whose fingerprints built this place. I thought speed was proof that I could lead. I was wrong. Here is what I'll do right." He read 3 promises: to learn out loud, to make mistakes in daylight, to never sign a thing he hasn't read twice and doesn't understand once. The staff didn't clap like a pep rally. They nodded like people who know that words are easy and work is not. It was better that way. Guests came. They drank sunset. They took photos and said the word view like it had more vowels. The band played songs written before my knees started to ache in the mornings. I stood near the bar and thought about the way revenge stories usually end. A punchline, a ruined rival, a tie loosened like victory. My ending is quieter. It has a ledger and a contract and a boy who isn't a boy reading into a microphone the conditions under which he will earn what he wants. Liza did come once more. Not that night. 3 nights later, as a guest of a guest, her hair tucked back, her dress soft, shoes low like she wanted to look smaller. Sophia let her in. We don't bar people for bad manners unless a court tells us to. She approached me with a smile almost human. "Congratulations," she said. "You kept your view." "I kept my son," I said. She looked past me at Adam, who was arguing with the band about a set break like a man negotiating something that mattered more than symbols. "He will outgrow you," she said, "not cruel, just certain." "I hope so," I said. "That's what raising is." "I wasn't trying to steal," she said, and for the first time I believed she believed it. "I was trying to take care of what he deserved." "Your plan had me incompetent and him dependent," I said. "Neither is care." She glanced at the edge of the bar where a small glass sat under the shelf light. She knew the shape. "Is that?" "No," I said. "That glass went into the dishwasher and then into the trash. This is clean." A reminder that every glass looks like every other one until someone puts something into it. She flinched, not visibly to anyone else, but I saw the tiny muscle at her jaw move. "You could have ruined me," she said. "You didn't." "I didn't need to," I said. "You did it yourself." I just pressed play. She opened her mouth to reply, then closed it. "Goodbye, Vera," she said. She didn't add Mrs. Sokolova. She didn't add anything at all. She walked to the door, past Sophia, past the heater that knew too much, and out into a night that didn't catch her. Consequences took their time like they always do. The annulment processed. The fraud inquiry about the forged notary and the doctored power of attorney went to an office with fluorescent lights and a budget for patience. Halvorsen and Pritchard took down 2 junior biographies and posted a paragraph about redoubling their commitment to ethical partnerships. M pled to charges that were not ours to celebrate. The internet moved on to a new outrage with a better soundtrack. We did the part that doesn't make for a viral video. We worked. Adam completed his rotations. He made a bad call on a linen contract and fixed it by standing in the laundry for a week and sorting by hand until the vendor cut the numbers back out of embarrassment or pity. He learned to read a banquet F&B sheet the way I read faces. He learned that you don't need to win an argument if you can write a better schedule. I kept my advisory that is not only advisory. I taught him what my husband taught me. There is no such thing as a small apology, and the floor is your mirror when you really want to see yourself. I taught him the names of every person who works a shift no one photographs. I taught him to stand at the end of a hallway and listen for a refrigerator hum that doesn't sound right. He taught me that the internet can be used for more than rumors. We launched the Lantern Foundation with quiet grants for staff childcare and an ESL class on Wednesdays on the mezzanine. The class filled in a day. We added Thursday. One evening, months later, the reporter who had taken my coffee and my hour returned to do a follow-up. She stood on the roof with her cameraman, wind in her hair like a commercial for coastal living. "What would you tell someone who thinks you overreacted?" she asked. I didn't react, I said. I prepared. "And what would you tell someone whose son doesn't listen?" "That you can't make an adult here," I said. "But you can create a moment in which silence becomes impossible. And then you back it with paper." She smiled. "Will you ever retire?" "I will give him the keys," I said. "But I will keep a copy and the right to embarrass him in public if he starts believing speed proves he knows where he's going." She laughed into the wind. It made good television because it was true. The night I finally put the binder away, I didn't do it with ceremony. I slid it onto a shelf in my office behind a stack of vendor catalogs where dust goes to settle and gossip goes to die. On top of the shelf sits that photo, the one Liza called very vintage, my husband with baby Adam in front of the bones of our hotel. The frame is scratched. The glass has a nick in one corner from the time I dropped it while cleaning. I haven't replaced it because I like the scar. It reminds me that we are held together by things that crack and are carefully set back into place. What about the spit? People always ask me that, even now in a lowered voice like they're asking for the password to a speakeasy. Was it as bad as it looked? Did it hit your face? Did you want to hit her back? The truth is more boring and more useful. It shocked me. It woke the room. It gave everyone a simple picture to post in their minds when they wondered who was who. But it didn't move the court. Paper moved the court. It didn't keep the roof. Petitions did. It didn't teach my son. Work did. Still, when the light hits just right at sunset, roof railing throwing a line of gold across my shoulder, I remember the sound that shiver of crystal made, and I'm grateful for the ugliness. Beauty can disguise theft. Ugliness sometimes introduces it. On the first anniversary of the almost wedding, Adam asked if we should mark it. "We should mark something," he said awkwardly, then braver. "We should mark that I didn't lose you." We planned a staff dinner in the closed dining room because the public doesn't need our anniversaries, only our service. We cooked, not catered. The banquet chef taught my grandsons how to roll meatballs without making them fight. We pushed the tables together in a long line like a bridge. I gave a little speech not about survival, but about capacity. "We can hold more than we think," I said. "As long as we're careful about what we pour in." At the end, Adam stood with a small envelope. He handed it to me. Inside was a key, not to the hotel, but to a safety deposit box and a letter. For whenever, it said at the top in his handwriting that looks like his father's when he is tired. Then bullet points, real ones, not for show. The covenants he'd met. The mistakes he'd made and corrected. The staff names he'd promoted and why. A line at the bottom: "If you think I'm ready for the next tranche, I will argue with you even if you say yes." I folded the letter once, then again, so it could live in my pocket. "Tomorrow," I told him. "We'll talk tomorrow." He nodded, not disappointed. Satisfied that there would be a tomorrow. After most had gone home, and the dishwashers hummed like lullabies, I took my coffee up to the roof and leaned on the rail. The city breathed. The ocean worked. Sophia came up behind me, moving like a cat. "There's a woman in the lobby," she said. "Says she's your guest." "Does she look like a florist?" I asked. "More like someone who has stopped arranging things," Sophia said. "Older than yesterday. Hands that have been learning what to do without a clipboard." I went down. Liza stood near the photograph wall, the one she had once wanted me to remove. She wasn't in white or black. Gray, soft, shoes you wear when you've been walking. She nodded at the pictures. I hate that I like these, she said quietly. I've been in enough hotels with new art they don't mean, and I hate that this feels better. It's the glass, I said. It breaks right there. I tapped the nick on my husband's frame. She looked at me with a tired half-smile I nearly recognized from before all of this began. It's not a crime to want more, she said. I kept telling myself that. It's not, I said. Just a crime to take it the way you tried. She swallowed. I'm leaving, she said. Starting over somewhere where the skyline is a different shape. I don't want anything. I just didn't want to disappear without saying that I almost believed what I said. That I was caring for him. We both care for him, I said. That doesn't make us the same. I know, she said. She looked at the photo again. He loved you up there, she said, nodding at my husband as if she had known him. He would have hated me. He would have recognized you, I said. He knew hunger when he saw it. He respected appetite. He feared entitlement. She blinked, eyes brighter but not crying. Goodbye, she said again. This time she added, Mrs. Sokolova. It wasn't an insult. It was a boundary. She left. I stood for a long time in the lobby after she was gone, the night auditor counting the drawer, the elevator whispering, the lemon in the water jug floating like a small sun. There was no applause. There never is when the good part ends. There is only quiet and a building that needs you in the morning. If you want an ending neat enough for a thumbnail, here, the wedding ended before it began. The spit dried, the roof reopened, the lean dissolved, the plan matured, the son learned, the grandmother kept her hotel and her name. If you want the truth that will help you when your lovely life attracts a person who mistakes your patience for permission, here, make your ledger now. Love your people and teach them to measure, not to guess. Let cameras be your witnesses and paper be your revenge. Close the prettiest room if you have to. Open it again when you can. And when you stand at the railing in the wind with salt in your hair and a city's worth of lights behind you, remember that ownership is not a ceremony or an accident. It is a practice. Once, I thought the lantern would be what I left my son. Now I understand it will be what we hand to everyone who works within its walls, a way to carry weight with grace. The boy in the photo grew up. The woman in the navy dress didn't retire. The roof is open. The lemons are fresh. And the next time someone offers me oil from the grove where they got engaged, I will smile, say thank you, and pour my own dressing.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.